Most focus problems are not caused by laziness or weak willpower. They are caused by the way your brain is wired in the modern world. The neuroscience of attention shows that your brain is constantly scanning for novelty, reward, and stimulation. And the environment most of us live in today is designed to exploit exactly that tendency. That is why you sit down to work and find yourself checking your phone within minutes. Why you start a task with good intentions and end up doing something entirely different. Why you can spend hours online and feel like you accomplished nothing. And why deep focus feels harder every year, even though you are trying just as much as before. In this video, we are going to break down how attention actually works inside the brain, why modern life is systematically destroying it, and most importantly, 5 practical steps to rebuild your focus using neuroscience-backed methods that are simple and realistic. Why your brain struggles to focus. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that difficulty focusing means something is wrong with them. But neuroscience explains it differently. Your brain was not designed for sustained focus on a single task. It was designed for survival, which meant constantly scanning the environment for threats, opportunities, and changes. Every unexpected sound, every movement, every new piece of information triggered attention. That reflex kept your ancestors alive. The problem is that this ancient brain now lives inside a world of smartphones, notifications, social media feeds, and 24-hour news cycles, all engineered to trigger that same attention-grabbing reflex as many times as possible. Every notification releases a small amount of dopamine. Every scroll produces a tiny reward. Every new piece of content activates the brain's novelty detection system. Your brain is not broken. It is responding exactly the way it was built to respond. It is just being exploited at a scale it was never designed to handle. Over time, constant switching between stimuli rewires the brain's attention system. The neural pathways associated with deep, sustained focus weaken from disuse. The pathways associated with rapid attention switching strengthen. This is neuroplasticity working against you. The more you fragment your attention, the more fragmented attention becomes your brain's default setting. This is why focus cannot be fixed through motivation alone. Motivation is temporary. Neural wiring is consistent. To rebuild focus permanently, you must change the environment and the habits that are constantly reshaping your brain's attention system. Step 1. Understand your attention system and stop fighting it. Your brain has 2 primary attention modes. The first is the focused mode, which is controlled largely by the prefrontal cortex and activated when you deliberately concentrate on a specific task. This is the mode you need for deep work, problem-solving, and learning. The second is the default mode network, which activates when your mind wanders, daydreams, or rests. This is not wasted time. The default mode is where the brain processes information, consolidates memory, and generates creative connections. The mistake most people make is treating all mind-wandering as a failure of focus. But the brain is not designed to stay in focused mode continuously. Research suggests that most people have a natural capacity for deep focus of around 90 to 120 minutes before the brain genuinely needs a recovery period. Trying to force focus beyond this window does not produce more output. It produces worse output with higher mental fatigue. So instead of fighting your brain's natural rhythm, work with it. Plan focused work blocks of 60 to 90 minutes, followed by genuine rest, not scrolling, not notifications, actual mental recovery. Your brain will produce sharper focus within those blocks when it knows recovery is coming. Step 2. Eliminate the cues that trigger attention switching. Neuroscience shows that focus is broken far more often by environmental cues than by actual lack of willpower. Every visible notification, every phone within reach, every open browser tab is a cue that competes for your attention, even when you are not actively engaging with it. The brain cannot fully ignore visible stimuli. Just seeing your phone on the desk activates a low-level attention pull, even if it does not ring. This means that protecting focus is primarily an environmental design problem, not a discipline problem. The solution is not to try harder, it is to remove the cues. Put your phone in another room during focused work, not face down on the desk, in another room. Close every browser tab unrelated to the current task. Use a single-purpose workspace if possible. a location your brain associates only with deep work. Turn off all non-essential notifications permanently, not just during work sessions. Every cue you remove is one less interruption your prefrontal cortex has to suppress. And suppressing interruptions is mentally expensive. The brain uses real cognitive resources to resist distractions. Every suppression slightly depletes the attentional resources available for actual work. Remove the cues and you stop spending focus on resisting distraction before the real work even begins. Step 3. Train your attention like a muscle. This is where most people give up too quickly. They sit down to do focused work, their mind wanders after a few minutes, and they interpret this as proof that they cannot focus. But neuroscience says something different. Mind wandering during focused work is not failure. It is the starting point of training. The moment you notice your mind has wandered and bring it back to the task is the mental equivalent of a repetition in a gym. That single act of returning attention is what builds the neural pathway for sustained focus over time. The problem is that most people, when their mind wanders, immediately reach for their phone, open a new tab, or find another distraction. That response reinforces the attention-switching pathway instead of the focus pathway. Start with shorter, realistic focus blocks. Even 20 minutes of genuine, distraction-free attention is more valuable neurologically than 2 hours of fragmented, half-distracted work. When your mind wanders, notice it without judgment and return to the task. Every return is a repetition. Over weeks of consistent practice, the neural pathway for sustained attention becomes stronger and the brain's default restlessness begins to settle. Step 4. Manage your dopamine environment. One of the most overlooked reasons modern focus is so difficult is dopamine dysregulation. Every time you check social media, receive a like, get a notification, or consume stimulating content, your brain releases small amounts of dopamine. Over time, with enough repetition, the brain begins to expect this constant low-level stimulation. When you sit down to do real work, which produces dopamine slowly and on a longer timescale, the brain experiences something close to withdrawal. The task feels flat, unrewarding, and boring, not because the work is genuinely uninteresting, but because your dopamine baseline has been elevated by constant stimulation. The practical solution is to reduce high-stimulation inputs before and during focused work sessions. Avoid social media, short-form video, and highly stimulating content in the first hour after waking, when the brain's dopamine system is especially responsive. Give your brain a lower stimulation baseline before asking it to do deep work. Over time, as constant stimulation decreases, the brain's sensitivity to more subtle rewards increases. Work that felt flat and unrewarding will begin to feel genuinely engaging again, because the dopamine system is no longer saturated. Step 5. Use the body to anchor the brain. Neuroscience consistently shows that physical state directly affects cognitive function. Sleep is the most important factor in attentional capacity by a significant margin. Even moderate sleep deprivation, defined as 6 hours or less for most adults, produces measurable declines in sustained attention, working memory, and prefrontal cortex activity. A single night of poor sleep impairs focused cognition roughly as much as being legally drunk. Most people trying to fix focus are doing so in a state of chronic sleep deprivation and wondering why nothing works. Physical movement also directly affects focus. Even brief physical activity increases levels of norepinephrine and dopamine in the prefrontal cortex, which are the same neurotransmitters that regulate attention. A short walk before a focused work session is not procrastination. It is neurological preparation, and hydration matters more than most people realize. The brain is roughly 75% water, and even mild dehydration measurably impairs attention, processing speed, and working memory. Before trying any advanced focus technique, address the basics: consistent sleep, daily movement, adequate hydration. These are not soft suggestions. They are the neurological foundation that every other focus strategy depends on. Without them, no technique works at its full potential. Why rebuilding focus feels uncomfortable at first. There is one more important reason focus is hard to rebuild. The brain values familiarity over improvement. Even a fragmented, distracted mental state can feel psychologically comfortable Because it is known. Sustained focus, especially in the early stages of rebuilding it, can feel almost physically uncomfortable. The mind produces restlessness, impatience, the urge to check something, to move, to switch. Most people interpret this as evidence that they cannot focus or that the task is wrong for them. In reality, this discomfort is usually the brain adapting to a new pattern, the same way muscles ache when you return to exercise after a long break. That discomfort does not mean you are failing, it means the rewiring process has started. The real goal is not perfection. Missing a focus session, getting distracted, having an unproductive day. None of this erases progress. What matters is returning to the practice consistently. One distracted afternoon does not undo weeks of intentional attention training. What undermines progress is allowing a single bad session to become a full return to old patterns, followed by guilt, followed by more avoidance. People who rebuild strong focus do not achieve it by never getting distracted. They achieve it by consistently returning to the practice of focused attention, day after day, long enough for the neural pathways to change. Rebuilding focus is not about becoming a different person. It is about understanding how your brain's attention system actually works and making the environmental and behavioral changes that allow it to function the way it was meant to. Your brain is constantly adapting based on what you repeatedly do. Every focused session strengthens the neural pathway for deep attention. Every distraction removed is one less drain on your cognitive resources. The attention you have lost to the modern environment was never gone permanently. It was redirected. And what was redirected can be redirected again. The capacity for deep focus is still there. You just have to stop feeding the system that's been pulling it away.